thing. I can't. I tried that last time. It was pretty embarrassing. No, when I looked at them, I would have sent them to you, but they were like, it was not good.
Oh yeah, let me switch over to gallery view. Yeah, I like gallery view. All right, everyone. We are on the Facebook, and we're on the Mixler, and good night.
And drive home safely.
I'm done. Drive home safely. Yeah. Enjoy it. Have an Iron City.
It's too bright.
It's the beer drinker's beer.
Nice.
Oh, somebody's coming. Roosevelt Bouie's already here.
Good.
Wow. We just let him in or wait a week?
No.
What does that mean?
No, hang on for 5. He can hang on for 5 minutes.
He's in timeout.
Just give me
what
one.
Are we about 10 seconds, Bob?
Before the disclaimer starts, yeah.
Okay.
And then there we go. 5 seconds for that.
All right.
Supplies are limited.
Many Americans.
The following show has paid WGCH a broadcasting fee, and the opinions expressed during the show are not necessarily those of the staff, management, or ownership of WGCH Radio.
Well, Aaron Gobrad, top of the morning to you, and welcome to the Clubhouse. I almost thought Bob was going to bring us in with a little, a little Irish music. Welcome to this edition of the Clubhouse. Happy St. Patrick's Day. I'm Rob Adams with my green attired partner of all these many years, Mark Jeffers. Mark, how are you?
Rob,
and all.
Happy St. Patrick's Day to you as well. And now I can see, because we are on Zoom, even though it is the radio show, but your statement to Bob, he's now frantically looking for some Irish music. So
no,
the rest of our guests may not even be on, but as long as we can get that Irish music, we're okay.
We actually probably have it ready to go from years of covering the Greenwich St. Patrick's Day parade.
Oh, you know what? We've got some bumpers to go to, so I'm looking forward to that. And Dave has got a lovely background. Dave, happy St. Patrick's Day.
Top of the morning to you, or evening. Yes.
Whatever you want to be, Dave.
Whatever it is. It's morning somewhere.
It is the top of the morning. One of the Irish sayings I heard is, I hope you have a good roof over your head, which, of course, at our house, there's trees in our roof most every other week. So I'm not so sure about that.
Yeah, I hear you. Everybody's Irish today, right?
Exactly.
That's what they say.
Big show tonight, guys. Big show. Yep. Again, absolutely. The producers overdoing themselves. We've got, who I believe is standing by, but we have Roosevelt Bouie, former Syracuse University star, and going to give us his input on the big tournament coming up. March Madness is back. And after that, Trey Wingo, an old friend of mine who was 23 years at ESPN, is going to tell us about what's going on in his life. So big show. But before we go there, Dave, any quick updates on Manhattanville? Just want to.
Yeah, actually, obviously we're in our spring semester and things are going very well. We're still doing a lot of online teaching, but we have an open house tomorrow night. Everybody is welcome. In fact, if anybody comes to the open house and applies to our master's degree program and mentions the Clubhouse, I will get them a discount. That's how impressed I will be. They will get a discount for mentioning the Clubhouse.
Wow, I like that. And no, in fact, if they mention the Clubhouse, they can be on the Clubhouse.
Well, that's it.
So I think it's time that we can bring Mr. Bouie in if he's in the. I guess he's in the green. I guess Rob, he'd be in the green room.
I think so, especially tonight.
He's in the green room.
And well, he looks like he's on a beach somewhere.
Oh my gosh!
Wow.
Gotta give.
Well, I have to do my introduction, but I'm completely dazzled by your backdrop, Rosie. But Roosevelt Bouie Jr., former Syracuse University star basketball player, host of Orange Appeal, and the Clubhouse college hoops expert, and my Cuse classmate. Welcome back to the Clubhouse, Roosevelt Bouie.
Thank you, Mark. It's my pleasure to join you here.
Well, all right. Either you have a better background than Dave. Of course, our radio audience is going, what are they talking about? But tell us about it. It's cool.
That's outside, and that's one of the boats that I actually restored. That's in the background. So I'm having a whole fun.
Wow. I love it. So everybody, before we get into our questions, family's well, you're surviving everything, the COVID's, everything's okay?
Yes, actually they call social distancing. That's the way of life in Kendall. So
Well, for those who don't know, Kendall is up near Rochester in New York. Is it snowing there? Oh no, it's not snowing in your backyard, of course, but it might be snowing there in August, so that's okay.
we had sunshine today, but it was kind of fake job because it wasn't very warm. It was about, you know what, it was almost 40. And that's rolling your window down, put your arm outside the window when you drive with it.
All right, Mr. Bouie, we have March Madness starting tomorrow.
Yep.
And we have to, before we get into the whole, I want to talk about the whole brackets and everything, but I have to give you the quick, I need, of course, my SU, and I didn't wear my SUs. I wore green today. So, oh, by the way, happy St. Patrick's Day.
There it is.
There you
There's
go.
on his chest.
I know. I should have worn it.
I'd also like to say happy birthday to Dale Shackelford, my
Oh,
uncle.
yes.
Nice.
And now, is he in Florida now, right?
Yes, he's in Florida now, soaking up the sun. He sends me pictures every day. And I'm going to push him down the stairs when I see him.
As well, you should. Okay, so March Madness tomorrow. We're actually Friday. So what do you think about our boys against San Diego State?
Well, I look at things, I noticed that by following the team for so many years that as Coach Boeheim has modified his approach and his zone, and everybody calls it a zone. I call it a hyper switching man-to-man, but hey, that's just me. The thing that I've noticed is that teams have a tough time playing against our zone for the very simple fact that it's not your average 2-3 zone. It's a 2-3 zone by design. So that's basically they sculpt players, tall, lanky, quick, athletic. When things are clicking, they can cover an entire floor, 3-point lane and everywhere. And it's designed to make you think that there's an open pass when there really isn't an open pass. So I like the chances. I like their chances also because they've been finding out who they are as a team. They didn't have those 10 games in New York State to try everybody, to get everybody some minutes, let them feel how they're doing. They didn't have
Cupcakes.
For real. They didn't have O'Shea Brissett. They didn't have Elijah Hughes. Those guys into the mix, and you got a Final Four team. So, but we got to do like everybody else. We got to swallow that bullet. Everybody's got to be a little patient because these guys, they're still good. They're getting used to playing one another, and then you lose your starting center in the first game. So it normally takes a few days to get adjusted with playing with guys that have played together the whole time, and then you get started, and then you get a pause, and then you get going again, and you get another pause, and it's. For all intents and purposes, they're just coming into their stride, which is what I've always looked for when I watch Syracuse play. I'm not a big, I watch them play games. I like to see them play well. I want to see them win. What ends up happening is I want them to be playing I think of it as a player. When I was a player, I wanted to win every game, but I wanted to be in a position that the team was growing and had found their stride when you're coming into the playoffs. And that's what I'm happy to say that Syracuse has done that. And if I was another team, I wouldn't want to be playing them because they have a couple of guys that are X factors. We know that there are 5 guys that can average double figures. And then, Free Jesse came off the bench and showed everybody that there's a 7-foot out there that likes to play. And when the moments are right with big teams, he can come in and he can be helpful because he doesn't know anything about the back down. I had a couple conversations with him, and I explained to him that when you're out on the floor and you're a big man, when you approach someone, if you've got your hands down, the referee that's way out front is getting ready to blow the whistle because he wants to see your hands. If you can't see your hands, he's gonna call a foul. So first thing you do is you put your hands up. But when you put your hands up, your mind says, I have to move my feet. And then you do it. So he's slowly learning. He's like a sponge. He wants to learn. I talk to him weekly. I talk to his parents. I met them over in Italy when the team went over. So they've got a lot of X factors out there. The key thing for them I made a couple notes to put down here. As they go along, it's important for them to communicate. They need to know their rotations, because what happens in sometimes when a guy misses a rotation, it's very easy to see, because you'll notice that the man is running towards the defensive player, which is a recipe for disaster. When everybody's got the right rotation, you'll see them closing out, and it creates a problem for that player because they got to pass it to someone else. But so if they communicate, they know their rotations, they're getting used to who's playing, you put guys in the game, and Coach Boeheim, he's so, what I like about him, I had a coach in Italy that used to do the same thing. I had a coach in Italy that used to say, we'd work on a specific defense all week. We'd work on it tirelessly so we could do it with our eyes closed. And when the game started, he'd go 2-3 zone. And if we got to stop, he'd say, do it again. We got another stop, do it again. And we play that zone the whole game when we had worked tirelessly the whole week on the zone. But he says, listen, when you put something out there and it works, you stick with it. That's old school right there. If it's not broke, don't fix it.
True. Absolutely. All right. Give us a quick, I want to know your thoughts on the brackets, the regions. Who, besides Syracuse, which we know we're talked about, but who else do you like? I mean, is Gonzaga going to roll it? Are they just unstoppable? Is that the team? Or give me a couple of your thoughts on the bracket.
When I look at this, what I think about when Gonzaga gets it, Gonzaga's a great team. You know, they might be head and shoulders above everybody else. But once you finish that last game and you're in the NCAA tournament, everything you did yesterday doesn't count. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. And what I've realized is, number one, teams that have been there before, their coaches know how to prepare them. They say, listen, go out there. If one thing for sure, if one guy plays aggressive defense, it's a foul. If 5 guys play aggressive defense, it's great defense. So do something, everybody do it together. It reminded me, I was at a talk somewhere, and I think it was Al McGuire that said they went to a really important game and he wanted to make a point. So when at the jump ball, he told everybody, I want you to turn around and knock your man on the floor after the jump ball. He said, you know, that way we'll set the pace, let them know we're here to play basketball. 1, 2, 3, jump ball. They turned and knocked the man down, and the referee went, and they went down and scored. And the whole place was like, and the pace was set. They went out there, and it's like our buddy Mike Tyson. Everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face. And everyone's like, oh crap. So Gonzaga, they can go out there and they can do a lot of things, but there's one thing for sure. You're going to find a player. I know I'm not the only player in the world. Anytime we played against a great team, I used to come into the locker room and the guys would be like, oh man, we got this good team we're playing against. I would tell them, you know, every year there's somebody that goes out there and ruins the season for some team. Let's be that team. Yeah. Heck yeah, it happens all the time. Somebody beats somebody that nobody expects it. And they go like, what? How did it happen? The X factor is when you have your players that believe in what they're doing, you can do whatever you want. When you look into the one thing that I pay a lot of attention to when I watch teams play is I look at the swagger that the team has. Like when the team comes out on the floor, I don't care if they're down. It's what they're used to playing. It was like the year that Syracuse went to the Final Four. They came out and Syracuse would score they might have 22 points in the first half, and the other team would have 28. And people say oh man, this is an ugly game. I said, but what I want to tell you is starting now in the second half, there's only one team on the floor that's comfortable where they are. The other teams are used to scoring 70 or 80 points. And when they get to a certain point in the game, they look up there and they go man, we got 35 points. The rim starts doing this. It starts going in and getting stalled. And you got to be able to play defense and communicate. And all of those things, you know, when I watch the game, I try to pick out the team that has that extra something. You're going to have to pick up all loose balls. You got to be aggressive, loose balls. You might have that player that has that light out shooting game. And if you do, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Keep giving them the ball. And when that one's not working, then go, hey, you know what? let's put somebody else in. I mean, there are players in the NCAA tournament, and I said I just wanted there to be March Madness. That was my goal, for there to be in March Madness and for Syracuse to get in there, because there's a chance for a team that's growing in all these situations. All you got to do is be flexible and be able to jump out there and play, and don't look at when the ball goes up, don't look anybody in their face. Go as hard as you can until the clock runs out and look and see what the score is. And I think there are going to be some surprises this year. A lot of surprises. There already has been.
Give us one.
Well, for me, it was for instance, let's talk Duke. Okay. When the year that Coach Boeheim went to the Final Four, the last Final Four, okay, they lost it was going to be the starting center, went hardship. Then he lost another player through injury, lost the backup point guard with a knee injury. And so basically they're out there playing with 4 guys that would have been not playing. And I said, how many teams around the country could do that and not fall apart? Yeah. I said, one. And I watched Coach Boeheim he took guys, and I know his whole concept is spread the ball around. He wants to have 5 guys be dangerous. He switched over to having 2 guys taking 80% of the shots. That's not what you believe in, but that's how you're going to win. And they stayed on that horse. They ended up going to the Final Four. And I'm like, and he shows me something every year about how he adapts. And when I went to the Final Four with them, I was sitting in the green room with Charles Barkley, Kenny Smith, and Reggie Miller. And after a little small talk, Charles Barkley was saying, he's like, you know what, I really don't like to watch college basketball because coaches will get something in their mind, they'll get a strategy, and they'll do that whole strategy for the whole game, and they'll lose by 15 or 20 points. He says, I like Syracuse because Coach Boeheim will go in at halftime and he will see something that's not working and he will adjust it and make something happen in the second half. So that's another thing. Teams that haven't been to the Final Four or haven't been in these situations, it's those first few minutes, which coaches prepare their teams and what to expect when they go out there. And that's very, very important. You got to put them in the right frame of mind, because how many years have you seen teams come out and get a cold start? Syracuse has done it, get a cold start, and then they play even the rest of the game, and that cold start is what would cause them, or that flat spot during the games would cause them to lose the game. So it's the coaches that prepare them mentally. Be aggressive, learn your rotations, and it's so very important. It's so tough now, but it's very important for players when they're getting ready, not to pay any attention to what we're saying. It's the more difficult the game becomes, the more the teams should start looking at inside toward the south. There were on campus back in the good old days, everybody used to stop me and ask me, how's Roosevelt Bouie going to play against Joe Barry Carroll? How's Roosevelt Bouie going to play against this player? And I said, I don't know.
By the way, Rosie, that may have been me, but that's okay.
Possible. And my answer was, Roosevelt Bouie doesn't have to play against anybody. I said, Syracuse University can beat anybody. And that's who you're going to get. You're never going to get me isolated. You're going to get all of us as much as you can handle. So
now let me ask this question. As a player, and because now, I mean, Syracuse, we've watched them play. All the teams are playing without fans for the most part. So some fans. How would that have been as a player? Is it difficult?
You know, it's funny you say that, because I'd always been one growing up in Kendall. Even when everything was great, we had 800 fans. That's when the gym was full. So I was always a firm believer in I could play in an empty gym, because the player has to motivate himself. But having said that, it's got to be really difficult, because think about it. Some of the greatest times we had going to college were surrounded around sporting events. I remember Art Monk came to me and he said, when are you going to start coming to our games? And I said, dude, I'm 190 pounds. You guys play outside in the snow. I said, I'm stuck to the bench. But eventually I started going out. Everything was an interaction with the students. So it's got to be, it's a big sacrifice, because these guys, they're basically They practice together. And I was talking to Jesse, they don't even, when they go back to their, like say they have they're living in a bedroom. They go back to their 3-bedroom, they don't use a common area together. They go back to their rooms and they use a common area, one at a time. The other thing is they got this beautiful, fantastic locker room set up out there. The varsity, it's the captain's locker room, I believe, outside. It's a big lounge where they have all the stuff and all the names of the past captains. They can only go in there 4 players at a time. You could easily put 30 players in there at a time and there'd be plenty of room. They go in there 4 players at a time. They can't give each other's ride to practice. Everybody gets their own way to come to practice. I mean, they're making a big sacrifice to play, and you can see it's going to be tough. But these guys, they've done. You know what? I think about it now. It's a novelty when you're playing, 1 or 2 or 3 games. But I remember my first game at Syracuse, home game. I walked out, and it was so loud. I said, "Thank God I came here." How did play? How the heck did I remember we used to have to talk about everything that we're going to talk about on the sidelines. I remember I forgot to tell Lewis something, walking out to the jump ball, and they were stomping their feet and clapping their hands. I cupped my hands and I screamed into his ear, and he looked at me and went, it was so loud you could feel it here, and that was 10,000 people. Back then, it was like 7,800 people. But I know they opened the doors at halftime, and it was so funny because all the little kids would listen to the radio and stand outside the fire doors, and they'd open the doors at halftime. There had to be like 400 kids running there, and the security guys were like, hey, and never followed them.
All right, so I have to ask you this because I want to know about the fishing mission. I know it's good to your heart. You mentioned it, and to me, I looked online. It's a really cool thing. I mean, I know we're changing subjects, but to me, it's a really nice thing to talk about. So, Roosevelt, tell us a little bit about that.
Well, fishing mission, that's something, something near and dear. Anybody that knows me knows that I started fishing when I was 6. I started playing basketball when I was 14. So I was a really good fisher by the time I started playing basketball. And I went out with my grandmother. I was a little tool. I used to get in trouble. I was busy. I was always doing something I wasn't supposed to. My grandmother took me out fishing with her, and I caught some fish and got a pat on the back, and I wasn't getting yelled at. And I was like, you know what? I like that. So it gave me kind of a little responsibility. By the time I was 9 or 10, I could take my fishing pole, a bucket, and some bait, and I could go out and I could come back with a lot of fish. And you talk to people, you ask the old timers at the dock. And so I learned how to fish. I went out into nature. And you know what? I started, and when I went to Italy, I would come back and I would meet up with Guy Ruff and Art Monk, and we'd pick some place, we go meet them, we go fishing, and for bragging rights. And it was a way that I could relax and just get in touch with nature. And it was also a way, spending 11 months out of the year away, for me to get back in contact with my family members. So each year I'd come back. I've got, I think around 23 or 24 nieces, great nieces, nephews. I've taken them all out to catch their first fish.
Wow. And
they catch their first fish. And the easiest thing for me to do when I want to see my niece and nephews is I live about 40 minutes away from, I'm the only one that still lives in the country. Everybody else moved to the city. In a time where everybody's on their iPads and the kids are playing and watching TV, I can call my nephew and say, hey, when are you going to come and go fish with Uncle? He will drive his mom crazy until he brings him out there to go fishing, because he gets outside. First he gets out of the car and he just starts running, and he just runs as far as he can, as fast as he can. And he comes back, and then I'll pretend like I'm casting, and I'll catch a fish out of it, and I'll say, can you hold this for Uncle? And I'll hand it to him, and he'll reel it in, and the look on his face, and then he stands right next to me the rest of the day. And every time I catch a fish, he'll reach up, that's mine, and I'll just hand it to him. But it's been for all my nieces and nephews. And I met up with a friend of mine. He said, you know what? we've got to get back out to nature. And then through the pandemic, I was inside. Like I would fish a couple days, maybe a couple days a week for a couple hours. I started noticing that as soon as the weather broke and it got all reasonably nice, I was fishing 4 days a week. And the other thing that I noticed was I wasn't tense, I wasn't uptight, I was fairly relaxed and calm. I was like, and then I called one of my childhood friends, and he came out, and after about 20 minutes of fishing, he said, listen, this is exactly what I needed. And I've always wanted to be able to, if I could bring the same thing that I've done to my niece and nephews who basically grew up in the suburb. They grew up in the suburbs, but it's kind of closer to the city of Rochester. Once they come out there and they do it, it becomes their own. If they want to, what's the old saying? Give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish, you feed him for a lifetime.
All right.
And it's just something that I know. I've taken some kids out of the city. I've always worked with underprivileged kids, young kids, and I wanted to show them there's something else to do. And in upstate New York, you can find great fishing in places you never knew.
It's true.
I'll never forget. I took my sister out. I came back home and I had a 33-pound salmon, and I put it there. And she said, "Where'd you catch that?" And I said, "In front of my house." And she's like, "I'll never get back in that water." She's like, "There are fish like that out there? There are big fish. I mean, there are fish everywhere." And I don't like the fish. I like the catch.
There you go.
Whatever it takes to figure it out and to pass that on to, I tell you, if you want to see somebody's eyes light up, show somebody how to continuously catch fish. And the thing is, I set it up so it's kind of like a college course. So if you want to just learn how to take the kids out and just have fun, that's fishing 101. Then you got 201, 301. And the last part is I show you how to find an old boat like behind me and take it apart, clean it up and fix it and have a real nice fishing boat to go out and enjoy life with. So it's one of my passions, and I've got a good group of people working with me.
Well, that's very cool. Guess what? We've run out of time.
Oh.
I know. But before we go,
Yes.
first of all, give our audience where they can get a hold of you for you're on Twitch now as well. And I want to know more and tell them about Fishing Mission, anything that they can learn about Roosevelt Bouie, let our audience know.
Hey, listen, the one thing that I would say is I'm on Twitch TV. I'm Roosevelt Bouie, all attached. My email is rbouie58, real hard, that's the year I was born, at yahoo.com. Anybody that's interested in either talking to me about it or because this is something that I don't want to do just in Kendall or Rochester or Syracuse. I think it's something that when organized properly is something that can be useful anywhere where there's water. And in upstate New York, there's water everywhere. So that would probably be the best way. I'll give you my phone number when we're off the air, and then you can have so if they call in there, you'll know how to contact you. Anybody that's interested, put them in contact with me.
Thank you so much, Roosevelt, and always a pleasure.
It's my pleasure. Thank you. Thanks
Cuse.
for having me. Hasta luego.
Rob, I think we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back.
Sounds good. We will take that break right now. We continue with the Clubhouse on 1490 AM, 105.5 FM, and WGCH.com.
Sue and her wife Helen meet their son every Saturday.
All righty. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks, Rosie.
Take care now.
Bye, Roosevelt.
Bye.
That was great.
I'm exhausted. And he's the quiet one on the show. So, and I'm not sure we're getting the Clubhouse in tonight to report. But
Yeah, I'm not sure.
well, I thought that was good. That was again surprising. That thing delightful. He was perfect.
Fired up.
Yep, he was
I
good.
liked it.
I love the passion on the fishing.
Yeah. Oh, here we go.
Okay.
Oh, come on.
WGCH.
welcome you back on this St. Patrick's Day edition of the Clubhouse. Rob Adams.
All right, there's your music.
There's a little music.
It's gonna
for
happen.
you.
There we go.
There we go. Mark Jeffers, Bob Small, Dave Toromio. That's great.
All right, so I've got to tell you something because Sarah and I are doing this, and we're nuts, and gosh knows we're nuts, as you well know. Denise Austin has, by the way, she's going to be on the show in 2 weeks.
Wait. Denise Austin's going to be on the show?
7-day healthy at-home challenge.
Wow. All right.
And Sarah and I have started it, and I'm already been beaten by Sarah, as you probably can imagine. So I'm not even going to go in there further, but yeah, she's going to tell us all about, and then all of us are going to be healthier. They're going, he can't wait.
I'll do it.
There you go. Bob, you're in.
I'll drink to that. Who said that?
Uh-oh. I just heard my wife is in the background. Not that I know that, of course. Anyways, I want to talk about that. And then real quickly before we get to Mr. Wingo, you know, Rob, after this rough winter, and it will end on Saturday, apparently, but tomorrow may not, your car's finish needs help. Splash Car Wash to the rescue. They have wash and detail services designed to remove that harmful salt, sand, and dirt from your car and get it looking great again. Their detail services can help restore that faded finish or clean out the insides of your car from all the dirt and sand that's collected there over the past few months. And here's one better. The Splash Unlimited Club. Wash your car as much as you want for one low monthly price. This is perfect for the spring and pollen season, where your car will be continually coated in green. Not even for St. Patrick's Day, but it said green. The Unlimited Club lets you wash when you want and save money. That's unlimited washing at the best car wash around, Splash, located at 570 North Bedford Road in Bedford Hills. You know, if this is what you would do if we were Grand Prix, we'd drop it.
That's right. Drop that copy. Splash. Make that copy splash. Outstanding. Outstanding. Welcome back, everyone. 7:33 as we continue on.
So I'm not my stuff I had to do. So now we can chat about life in general. Oh my gosh, unless there's a backdrop. Of course, we're on radio, but there's a backdrop that just makes me extremely happy that he's here, but also sad that I don't have that backdrop.
Whiffy, what's up, brother? How are we?
Hold on. I wrote an intro, Trey.
Okay.
And I spent weeks on this. Trey Wingo, 23-year ESPN veteran and new PGA Tour live broadcaster and host of the national podcast Half Forgotten History. My friend Trey Wingo, welcome to the Clubhouse.
Thank you. I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm all right. How's the family? First of all, family, COVID, you're surviving. Everything's okay?
We're doing great. How about you, Whiffy? Everything good?
Now, see, I have a note here that, we have to have, first of all, we had 30 years or over 30 years of knowing each other. And, there was FCC licenses because we're on the radio in Greenwich, which you may have heard of, Greenwich, Connecticut.
WGCH, the first place I ever did any work in 1980.
Nice.
We knew that. Wow. So, all right. So now so I'm stunned by you went with Whiffy because I'm not sure that the boys here. I want to introduce you, by the way. We have Bob Small at GCH.
Hey, Bob, how are you?
Bob Adams
Good,
and
thanks.
Dave Romeo and
Hi,
Trey
guys.
Wingo.
Great.
So yes, Whiffy was a name that I had, and Trey and I worked at NBC together a few moons ago.
I was about to say, yes, a couple of solar eclipses ago, no question.
But before we're going to go back to that, but I want to talk before we do that. Since leaving the 4-letter place up in Bristol, you've been very busy. You recently hosted the PGA Tour live digital coverage. And by the way, how was Torrey Pines?
It was not terrible, and I'm doing another thing for them in a couple of weeks. I'll be down for the RBC Heritage Classic the week after the Masters, which is in Harbortown, which, as we all know, is in a beautiful little stretch of South Carolina, Hilton Head area. So that'll be fun.
And of course, now I have to ask you this: who do you like in this week's Honda Classic? And the reason I'm asking you, Trey, is because I need to make my fantasy golf team with DraftKings. Oh yeah, a sponsor of Half Forgotten History. You're very. See how I transition there? I'm like, you've been in this broadcast business. But I want to tell you, you're a very enjoyable national podcast in its second season.
Yeah, we're excited about that. Half Forgotten History is great. I just did a couple of interviews for season 3, which is coming out in just a few weeks as we're wrapping up season 2. It's going to be fun. Half Forgotten History. The whole idea, Mark, just so people know, was all the stuff that I heard from people that never made it to the air in all those years working. We're going to tell those stories, and so that was sort of the impetus for season 1. Season 2 is about Super Bowl champions. Season 3 is going to be all about the draft and the Masters. So we're very excited about that. And we have some other seasons planned way ahead of that as well. So we're doing well.
All right.
All right. Well, speaking of golf, let's go back to the Masters. You've covered pretty much every sporting event that I can think of. And we've stayed in touch all these years.
Yep.
Never covered the Masters.
Never once. I've done the PGA Championship. I've done the Open Championship or the British Open. Done the U.S. Open. I've done Wimbledon. I've done the Australian Open. I've done the U.S. Open in tennis. I've done the Olympics, football, basketball, hockey, baseball, college basketball. Never once have I set foot at Augusta National. So I'm hoping that we can remedy that in some way, shape, or form soon.
Well, I think we should, the clubhouse may have to start like a drill here that we have to get Trey to Augusta.
Who am I to say no?
That's the only thing I can think of. All right, so on the golf tour, who do you like as we get close to the Masters? I mean, who's playing good golf? Who do you like coming up in the Masters there?
Well, a couple of things. First and foremost, I would love to see Rory find a way to win because it would complete the Grand Slam for him, which is the most exclusive club in golf. Someone's that have won all 4 professional majors. And remember, it was the 2011 Masters when he stood on the 10th tee at Augusta with a 4-stroke lead. And then he hit it somewhere I didn't know existed on the course. So far left off the 10th hole. I'd never seen those buildings before. And he melted down the stretch. But of course, it bothered him so much he went on to win the next major he played in the 2011 U.S. Open at Congressional with a record-setting score in terms of relation to par. So I would really like to see Rory find a way to win it. But, there's a reason guys like DeChambeau and Westwood have been in contention almost every week. The problem is, how long does that go? And how long does that stretch last? And what's really interesting about Bryson is how much he sort of talked himself into the idea of winning Augusta when it was played in November. And then it's almost like the course said, hold my beer, right? Like it's not that easy. Like he said, all the par fives are really par fours for me. And then he had a terrible week on the par fives. So I'm curious if Bryson will go in a little humbled in this situation. But my God, Justin Thomas, the way he played at the Players, I don't know if I've ever seen a better ball striking ability over 4 days than his. And the thing about Justin, which is amazing, and I saw him do this at the 2017 U.S. Open at Aaron Hills. We all marvel at Bryson DeChambeau because, he's 6'1", 6'2", 200. He's a big fat guy, basically, is what he is. He's using his body mass index to propel the ball farther. So he's hitting at 370. Justin Thomas is like 140 pounds soaking wet, and he's hitting it 340, 350. Rory's 5'10", 170. He's hitting it 360. So to me, those two are actually more interesting than Bryson. We just fall in love with Bryson because he's become Franken golfer, right? He was built in the lab and we put all these parts together and it's going well. But in terms of sheer talent, those two guys are ridiculous.
Yeah, but hold on. You're a golfer and there's rumor on the street. No, there's rumor on the street, Trey, that you're thinking about heading to the PGA Champions Tour. Now, we can have a big clubhouse coup here if you tell us that's true.
It would be true if I had this thing called ability, but I don't. So, other than that, I'm set for the tour. I have the clubs, I have the hat, I have the attire, I have the walk. I just don't have the swing.
So close.
It's the one thing you need.
I know. Jen, yes, Rob.
Yeah, I'm going to dive in since I'm still the GCH guy other than Bob around here. So, Trey, I'm dying to know, who was sports director back then?
The legendary Bill Daughtry.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Okay, I'll tell you a funny story. It's my senior year in high school, and Bill Daughtry comes to Greenwich High School, and he's asking a bunch of us who's going to win the Super Bowl. Super Bowl 15 between the Raiders and the Eagles. And apparently a lot of people said the Eagles, and I said, well, I really like the Raiders because of this, and this. And then, of course, they went on to win 27-10, the final score. Jim Plunkett, MVP. Although Rod Martin should have been the MVP, linebacker had 3 interceptions in the game.
Yep.
It shows you how screwed defensive players are, right? He had 3 interceptions in the Super Bowl and didn't get a sniff for Super Bowl MVP. Yeah. But anyway, I accurately predicted that game. He came back and found me and said, here, I want you to work for me. So I did a couple of things for him, and that was my first ever foray into the business. So a glass raised to the legendary Bill Daughtry, who recently retired,
yes,
I think not too long ago from WCBS Radio New York.
Last I knew, doing stuff in jazz radio, actually, on WBGO in New Jersey. So good for him.
That sounds about right. That sounds about right for him.
Good for him. Was he calling Greenwich football at that time on GCH?
I think he was. Absolutely.
Yep. Well, that's where I come in because that's what I've been doing for a long time. So, yeah, I know the drill.
So when did you start doing Greenwich football?
Greenwich football for me began in my first game was 99, and then I took it over in 2000.
Gotcha. Well, it's amazing to walk by or drive by that stadium now on the post road and look down and see the AstroTurf and everything, because that was not a thing back in the day, man. We didn't have any of that. We were, look, Steve Young was great. Don't get me wrong. But, more people at Greenwich High School were concerned about would the swimming team win state than whether or not the high school team would win state, which I think sums up Greenwich in a lot of ways, if you think about it.
It does. The bleachers have been taken down. For folks who don't know, they're rebuilding the whole thing. So Cardinal Stadium is going to look great in the future, and pretty excited for all of that.
Fantastic.
Trey, I have a question for you. Dave Toromio here, and thanks for joining us. I mean, Marcus told us he was going to get you for many years, so good to have you on the show. The question I have really is about Gonzaga and the NCAA tournament. I'm sorry it's not about Syracuse and the love fest we just had with Roosevelt Bouie and Mark and you guys.
You missed that, Trey. We had Bouie on. It was a Syracuse love fest.
I was about to say, well, I think literally half the employees at ESPN come from the Syracuse School of Communications.
The Wild Hacks run the joint now, so it's good.
Yeah, and the other half come from Northwestern and Medill. So it's really a little nauseating if you don't go to one of those schools.
So the question is this. Now, when I was at Iona, we went out and played Gonzaga, and Spokane, Washington, there's really nothing exciting. Gonzaga has become a basketball powerhouse. 21 straight tournaments, the most. They haven't missed a tournament since the 90s. I mean, how the heck did they do this? Because there was an article in the New York Post today about how the one of the academicians, in their brilliance, said we should be a Division III school. And the AD said no, because if we make the NCAA tournament, it's going to bring so much more publicity and fundraising and things. But how the heck did they pull this off? Because it's amazing to me.
Well, it's interesting because, listen, there's an old saying, be careful what you wish for, you just may get it, right? The first time Gonzaga made a splash in the NCAAs, it was the late 90s, 97, 98, and Dan Monson was the head coach. And I think they made it to the Elite Eight of the Sweet 16 where they had never been before. And then that year he realized, hey, this is probably as far as I can take this program. So I'm going to go to Minnesota. Well, he went to Minnesota and it turned out to be an abject disaster. And, he sort of bounced around the coaching carousel since then. But his assistant took over, and Mark Few. And Mark Few's a kid from there who believes in the area. And he's like, I have the perfect job. It's my favorite job in the world, and it shows. They've like you said, they haven't missed a tournament since the 1990s. They finally made it to a Final Four a few years ago. I have no idea if they're making it to a Final Four this year, and what's going to be a weird year for college basketball. Yeah. But they picked the right guy. Is the short answer to the long question. Like Mark Few was a guy who lives and breathes Gonzaga basketball, Yeah. And when Monson left to seek that better opportunity, he realized how good he could have it there, and he's just loved it. And that has transcended to his ability to recruit players and his ability to relate to players. So the short answer is when they had to make a coaching change because somebody else looked for greener pastures, they found the absolute perfect candidate in Mark Few.
Yeah, and just perspective for our listeners, Rutgers, who had played in the Big East and now the Big Ten, hasn't made the tournament in 30 years.
Yeah.
In 30 years, and here they're in the 21st consecutive. I think it's amazing.
It's a remarkable story. And look, Rutgers is one of those things, they've tried to go for the big name before. They had the Mike Rice situation, and we all saw how that panned out. It was an absolute disaster. So, they bet on the right horse is the easiest way to say it. And it has worked out perfectly for Gonzaga.
All right, Mr. Wingo, what do you think about this team called the Baylor Bears? You may know a little bit about them since you went to college there.
Championship, baby. You want to talk about?
Are you saying that out of heart or brain?
Well, I'm saying it out of definitely heart and hopefully brain. I mean, they've been one of the best teams all season long. They brought everybody back after last year. And while Mark Few made the most of his situation when he took over for Dan Monson, I don't think there's a better reclamation project in the history of college basketball than what Scott Drew has done. For example, long story short, again, when I was there was a big scandal at Baylor when Jim Haller was trying to buy players, which, most people do, but that's a separate issue entirely. And he was caught on tape, basically admitted. So that was a disaster. So the program sort of bounced around for a couple of decades. And then they brought in Dave Bliss, who made a big splash at SMU and then went on to, I think, Indiana for a few years, and then went to Baylor. And things were going up and they were doing really well. And then, of course, that was a disaster and so much scandal and controversy. And it couldn't have been worse at Baylor. And one of the problems was one of the guys that blew the whistle on Dave Bliss was looked at as a pariah, which I always thought was funny because I thought we were supposed to go by the rules. So he was doing the right thing, and he sort of got destroyed for it. So Scott Drew, the son of Homer Drew, the longtime head coach at Valpo, and his brother Bryce Drew had that amazing shot in the first round from half court to win the game in the first round, and went on to a long coaching career at Vanderbilt and other places. Scott Drew came in there and took them from the ashes and has turned that program around. They've made it to a couple of Elite Eights, never made it to the Final Four, but I do think this is their year. I think this is the year they get to the Final Four, and they have as good a chance as anyone to win that national championship. And the fact that Scott has stuck with it that long, we're talking about 16, 17 seasons now, has been absolutely remarkable.
All right, I want to head back for a second to half-forgotten history.
Yes.
Because it is a really, I told you, I listen to shows. It's very cool. Now, as a Giants fan, I understand from my research, Trey.
Yeah.
You've had Eli Manning on the show. Can you share with our audience any funny stories from that interview?
Yes, well, actually, it was great. We had Eli and Archie on together, which was really fun. And the two of them.
Dave, by the way, Dave worked with Archie, so it's even.
Wow, very cool. Archie's one of my favorites. Like, we became friends about 5-6 years ago, just out of happenstance. And
best.
But the funniest thing about the Eli episode, because he was the last of their three kids, the last of their three boys. So I think his dad played 1 or 2 years that he can remember while he was alive, and the rest of his time he remembered his dad being the broadcaster for the Saints. And he told this story he didn't know his dad was any big deal as a kid because he never saw him play, really. He doesn't have many memories of that. But he remembered going to the games and everyone would ask for his dad's autograph. So he said, so I thought that's what kids did. They asked for autographs of their friends' parents. So whenever he would have a sleepover at somebody's house or, join a basketball team, he would get the autographs of the parents whose house he was sleeping over at, or his rec basketball coach. And I said, wow, you must have the biggest collection of the most worthless autographs of all time. And he said, they weren't worthless to me. I thought he was the best third base coach I'd ever had and the best basketball coach I'd ever had. But literally, Eli would go around and collect the autographs of all of the parents of his friends, because that's what his friends did to his dad. He had no idea that there was a professional football layer into this. And the other part of it, which was great, and I had heard this story years ago, Eli's rookie year, they're playing, I can't remember who they're playing. He'd already been in for Kurt Warner. They benched Warner. And they're playing someone, and their left tackle was Luke Pettigrew, who played every game. Well, in that game, he broke his leg.
He was good. Yeah.
Luke Pettigrew was very good. So Luke broke his leg. So in came Bob Whitfield, the backup. And Bob had been in the league like 15, 16 years, former first-round pick. He had played very well. But clearly at this point, he was at the end stage of his career, and he was just hanging on. And he played terrible. And Eli got sacked a dozen times, fumbled a couple of times, constantly hit. The game was a disaster. So that next week, they had a players-only meeting for the Giants. And Whitfield got up there and said, hey, man, this one was on me. Luke never gets hurt. I didn't think I was going to play. The night before the game, I'm out partying with women. I didn't sleep at all. So, I wasn't expecting to play. So this one's on me. And Eli, straight-faced, turns to Tim Hasselbeck, who was the backup quarterback, and says, yeah, and I'm the bust, right? Like, that is one of my all-time favorite stories. Tim Holt told me that years ago, and I've always wanted to ask Eli about that. And he's like, yeah, that's when I learned that not everybody prepared the way I did.
Oh, I love that.
Oh my God.
All right, moving on.
Yep.
Can you give us our audience a couple of the upcoming guests on, by the way, my new favorite podcast?
Thank you very much. We're dropping a new episode tomorrow with Lane Johnson, the right tackle for the Eagles, who has the most interesting story I can think of in terms of player development. He was a standout quarterback in high school, and then went to Kilgore Junior College, which is a great JUCO program. Went to Oklahoma as a quarterback. They said, you're not going to play as a quarterback, so we're going to move you to tight end. Then they said, that's not going to work. So they moved him to defensive end. And then finally, they moved him to offensive tackle. Like, you want to talk about going down the rungs. He de-evolved, basically. He de-evolved his way into a first-round pick in the NFL draft, and was a part of the Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles in Super Bowl 52 when they stunned the world and beat the Patriots 41-33. And he was one of the inventors of those dog masks that they wore, because we're the underdogs, even though they were the number one seed, because Carson Wentz got hurt that year. So he's coming out. We're doing a bonus episode with Kurt Warner to wrap up season 2. I just taped an interview today, because season 3 is all about the draft and the Masters, with Ryan Leaf, and it was amazing. Like, Ryan Leaf's story to me is, maybe it's because we coincided, because my first year in ESPN was 97. Yeah. His draft class was 98. I've seen him, the arc to being the second overall pick, the total crash, and then how he's resurrected his life from the ashes. It was amazing. It was a phenomenal interview. It'll be coming up. It'll be dropping a couple weeks in April. And we've got some other guests lined up. I'm talking to a couple of golfers as well. Tony Finau is going to join the show on Monday. So that'll be a future episode. But the Ryan Leaf episode today was really amazing. As soon as we decided to do a series or a season on the draft, I said we have to have Ryan. And he was great. It was an incredible 45 minutes. I think you'll really like it.
All right. So my problem is, Trey, we had another guest on earlier. Otherwise, next you have to come back to the Clubhouse, because I need a full hour with you and my colleagues. I would assume agree, but we actually running a little bit out of time. I want to tell our audience where they can learn more about, obviously, all the things you're doing, but in particular the Half Forgotten History, because it is a great podcast. I've listened to a couple of them earlier today, and it's great. So tell our audience where they can get a hold of that, and go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. First of all, my YouTube page, Trey Wingo Presents, is available. Also, Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, Luminary. I'm trying to think if I'm missing anything. Apple, Stitcher, wherever you find your podcast, just search Half Forgotten History and it shows up. We've got 17 episodes, and we're just getting started. It's going to be a lot of fun. But also, if you're more visually entertained, go to the YouTube channel. You can also check it on my Facebook page, Trey Wingo, and my Twitter and Instagram accounts as well.
Happy St. Patrick's Day, my friend.
Oh, may the luck of the Irish be with all of you. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for being on the show, Trey. I really appreciate it.
Go Cards, baby. Go Greenwich Cardinals, that
is. There you go.
All right.
Do we need a break, Mark?
And we'll be back to wrap it up.
Sounds good. We'll do it, and we'll be right back after this on 1490 AM, 105.5 FM, and WGCH.com.
Greg met his mother at their
Good spot.
Yeah, that's. We need to have one. I guess I didn't realize the other one was going to. I knew Trey would be. That's interesting. All great. The greatest. Happy. Good guests. We're going to bypass the clubhouse reporter. I think, right? Or.
By the way, one of our alumni is the marketing person out of Torrey Pines, Julia Winter.
Oh yeah. The other thing is actually, we should congratulate Matt because I sent him an email for Iona getting in.
Yeah. Yeah. So they're going to get their ass kicked out of that.
What's our time, Bob? Should we just chit chat and get out?
Yeah, you're
We got
gonna have
like-
what, 3.5 minutes when we come back?
3.5.
Right.
Yeah.
What can you do? Can you do it?
I can do a short one.
Okay.
Or we can just chit chat. It's up to you guys. I don't.
Good call.
Do a short one.
All right.
Time is not of on our side here, dare I say. So shall we dive right in and do a little bit of the clubhouse report?
Well, thank you, Rob, and Bob, and Dave, because a lot.
Do you want music? No band? Or was that the band?
I think it was we have an Irish band. Now we have time for the band. We have time for the band. Go ahead.
Oh, geez. Now I got to find the band.
Dun, 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 the band.
The Clubhouse Report with your host, Mark Jeffers.
Sharon Begora, we're here. Thank you, Rob and Bob and Dave, and welcome to the Clubhouse Report.
Top of the morning.
So I'm going to go to some sports that we haven't talked about because we talked about, obviously, the basketball tournament coming up. But on the ice, in NHL action, the Washington Capitals snapped the New York Islanders winning streak at 9 last night with a 3-1 victory. Dave's Islanders host the Philadelphia Flyers tomorrow night with a 7 o'clock face-off. Dave, things are looking good in the Islander world.
Not really. Anders Lee, their captain, is out for the
Lee.
season and the playoffs. And it's
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mention. Yep.
Yeah.
This is why you're on the show. So that's sorry for that.
But thanks for that, Mark.
The New York Rangers host the Flyers tonight at a 7:30 start, and the New Jersey Devils host Pittsburgh tomorrow night at the Rock with a 7 o'clock faceoff. In Sandlot spring season baseball action this afternoon, the New York Mets lost to the Miami Marlins 3-2, while the Yankees shut out Toronto 1-0. Now, on the basketball courts, again, the New York Knicks dropped 2 tough games this week, losing to the Brooklyn Nets on Monday night after making a gallant comeback, and then lost another heartbreaker last night, 99-96, to the front-running Philadelphia 76ers. Knicks hope to get back to 500 as they host Orlando tomorrow night at the Garden with a 7:30 start. The Red Hot Nets travel tonight to Indiana to face the Pacers with a 7 o'clock tip-off. I think, you know what? I think the Nets are the real deal, and I think they might be the Eastern
team, very unlikable team.
Yeah, I agree with all that. The Knicks have to learn how to win.
Right.
That's all.
Right.
They're close, but they have work to do.
And finally, NBA superstar LeBron James, the New York Yankees fan, has purchased a minority ownership stake in the rival Boston Red Sox. And that, my friends, will wrap it up for this week's Clubhouse Report. No run out of time. Rob, back to you.
All right, there you have it. And that, friends, will wrap up the Clubhouse. And great job by Trey Wingo, WGCH's own, I might add, and Roosevelt Bouie. 2 weeks. We will see you then. For Bob Small, Dave Toromio, Mark Jeffers, I'm Rob Adams saying good night from the Clubhouse. We'll see you soon on 1490 AM, 105.5 FM, and WGCH.com. Stay safe. Good night, everyone.
AM 1490 and FM 1.
Hey, all right.
Really good show. A really, really good show.
Really, really good show.
That was a really cram-packed show.
Yeah.
Whew, sure was.
And it's one of those things where I don't remember. Maybe you guys remember. I don't remember Roosevelt being quite as
I don't loquacious.